Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ba'd. Inshallah, today, chapter 16, we're going to talk about what are some proactive measures we can actually take to prevent ourselves from falling into hasad. This idea of jealousy is something that we've been talking about for the past few weeks, why it's extremely problematic, what are some of the things that we can do to control it, what are some of the methods we can use to actually channel some of the anger that is associated with jealousy in order to bring that jealousy down. And today, inshallah, Imam Ghazāli, he's going to talk about some of the proactive measures we can actually take to better ourselves to try to remove that sense of jealousy. In line with this, in line with the Tazkiyah class, there is another class that will that complements this one. There's a class that will be starting inshallah next Wednesday for those of you that will be interested. Here in the lecture hall after Salat al-Iḥyā, we're going over the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So for those that you want to attend, I think it's something that's going to be really beneficial. Bi'idhnillah. Wednesday, inshallah. Wednesday after Isha. Thursday's today. Yeah. I'm not going to be teaching it, no. It's going to be Ustadha Samreen Rizvi. She studied at Qura as well. So, inshallah. So jealousy is an extremely harmful disease of the heart and cannot be cured except by knowledge and action. So he breaks this up into two parts. He says there's a two-pronged approach in dealing with jealousy. There's a knowledge-based section of it and there's an action-based section of it in order to help us understand, in order to help us deal with it. So he says here that when it comes to knowledge, there are two facets to this knowledge that we can use to help us control jealousy. One is worldly, the other one is? Spiritual, right? Spiritual or religious knowledge. He's saying that both of these can be used to help us combat jealousy. And there are reasonings behind both of them which help give insight to that. And both of these can be applied to us. So he says that as an individual, we tend to be jealous of someone. And we are jealous of them because of the same two reasons that we can use this knowledge for. Either I'm going to be jealous of someone in a worldly sense, or I'm going to be jealous of them in a religious one. And the problem is you end up becoming your own enemy. Right? You start hurting yourself. And this is something that's extremely problematic. And there's no one that you don't benefit from this at all. Right? You don't benefit from this at all. There's religious harm that comes from this. So what Ghazāli is going to do now is he's going to say, okay, like what are some of the religious methods? What are some of the knowledge-based methods that we can use? Or what are some of the worldly methods we can use to actually help us control that jealousy? So over here, that we know that jealousy, it stems from anger. This anger it stems because we are and it's channeled toward the person we are jealous of. And if I'm angry at the person I'm jealous of, and essentially I'm angry at Allah's will, right? Because Allah is the one that gave him and blessed him with whatever blessing it is that I am jealous of. And which means that I'm angry at one of Allah's blessings. And meaning, he does this exam a lot, but he's saying that if I'm angry at a blessing, I'm angry essentially at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sense of justice and how he distributes his blessings. And if I'm angry at his justice, I'm also angry at one of the essential pillars of Tawheed. Because one of the essential pillars of understanding and dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that he is infinitely just. And that has an effect on Iman. So basically what he's tying is he's saying that jealousy essentially will affect your Iman. Jealousy will essentially affect your belief. And he's saying that this is a crime, right? So just these two elements in and of themselves, this is actually a crime. This is extremely problematic. The fact that I am jealous of someone is extremely problematic in my dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and in my heart. And this is in addition to, right? So he doesn't stop here, rahimahullah. He says that this in addition to, I'm actually betraying a believer with this jealousy. I'm betraying a believer with this jealousy. Why? Because I'm trying to prevent myself from giving him advice. And this is against the way of the prophets and the awliya, because they were sent to give advice and help the believers. Also, what was their way? Their way was the way of love. Their way was the way of hub. And what did they do that? They would love good for who? They would love good for the believers. And they would love good for others. The problem is when I'm jealous, this is actually the way of shaitan and the disbelievers. So instead of loving good, what do you guys think is going to happen? I love what? Right? I love to harm. And who do I love to harm? Others, right? I love to harm others. And this idea, what eventually happens is like, essentially loving good and loving harm, these are two different things, right? So loving good, we would summarize as love. And loving harm is hate. And again, these elements and these essentials are extremely problematic. And the combination of this, like this idea of harming others, where does it stem from? And where does it come from? It does come from jealousy, but it comes from, he is saying it essentially comes from an evil heart. Like this heart has already been corrupted. So a heart that suffers from jealousy is one that has already been corrupted. And he's saying that this destroys, yeah, go ahead.
I thought you finished. The advice part, I didn't get who advice?
Oh, sure. So I'm betraying him by not giving him advice, right? So if I want to take the prophetic way is to what? Is to advise. And the way of shaitan and the disbelievers is to?
How is advice and jealousy?
Because when I'm jealous of someone, do I want good for him?
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? I don't want good for him. So if I see him doing something wrong, what am I going to do? I'm gonna either I'm going to encourage him, or I'm going to what? I'm going to withhold myself and say like, no, I'm not going to say anything to him, and I'm going to kind of let him do whatever it is that he's looking to do, whatever it is that he wants to do. So this idea of this evilness, this want and this desire to harm, this want and this desire to hate, what happens is it starts consuming the heart. Right? It starts consuming the heart. And when it does that, it actually starts consuming what? Your good deeds. How can jealousy consume your good deeds? What is happening?
Very specific hadith. Remember, if jealousy burns your good deeds like fire, is that correct?
Not specifically. I want you guys to think about this. How can jealousy destroy good deeds?
You stop doing good deeds.
Because you stop doing good deeds. Right? You start showing ill will toward others. So when I'm showing ill will toward others, what am I stopping myself from doing? I'm stopping myself from doing good. And what's happening now is like because of that jealousy has become this catalyst. Right? It's become this catalyst, and it's actually what? It's actually pushing me. It's pushing me to do more bad. It's pushing me to do more harm than it is to push me to do good. So that was in a religious sense. Here, in a worldly sense, he's saying that basically it leads to pain and torment. Why? How does jealousy lead to pain and torment? You start becoming obsessed with this person. So if I see someone who's successful, I'm jealous of him, and then he gets something else, what happens? I get angrier, right? And then he gets something else. Right? This is something that is constantly consuming me. It constantly brings me pain. It constantly brings me torment. It's something that constantly hurts me. Especially when this blessing persists. Because what do I want? When I'm jealous of someone, what do I want for that person?
Either you want to disappear or you want to flourish.
Right? So either I want the blessing to disappear from him, or I want to bring my level above his. So this idea of this blessing actually persisting, it brings this gloom and this sadness, which is the thing that kind of, this kind of feeds in on itself. And what you will notice time and again are these feedback loops that are created. Now, the idea that Imam Ghazāli is going to bring with a lot of these negative concepts is like there's a lot of negative feedback loops. He wants to create positive feedback loops. And then he's going to talk about how you can actually adjust some of this thinking, how you can channel some of this hatred in a way where this can actually become a positive thing in our favor to help remove that jealousy from our hearts. So he's saying that if the blessing increases, what happens here? It's like the pain and torment just increases along with it. And you see the cycle? Right? We've already created a negative feedback loop here. This idea of being jealous towards someone, and whenever blessings persist, or whenever blessings increase, how it goes back. And in addition to that, what if I'm given money? How do you think I'm going to use my money in regards to this person? I'm going to try to use it to hurt him in some way. And what happens is that I use that money to hurt him, and and what happens? He's still blessed, right? The blessing still persists, and then what happens? Huh? You just get angrier. So here, the worldly harm that he's mentioning and that he's presenting is like, okay, not only do you get pain and torment, even if you try to do something to hurt him financially, you will only end up hurting yourself. And there's certain realizations that you can come to. There are certain things that we have to understand is that we will be resurrected. We will be resurrected, and the important element of resurrection is that we will all be what? We will all be held to account. And if I understand I'm going to be held to account, am I going to worry about what other people are doing? Right? This is an important point that he drives home eventually. So this should be enough to warn us from being jealous of others. He's saying this is a logical conclusion, right? This idea, if I remember that I'm going to die, if I remember that I'm going to be resurrected, if I remember I'm going to be accountable, this should be enough to prevent me from what? Not just from doing bad, but what? From what? From being jealous. Why? Because I'm less concerned with others, and I'm more concerned with myself. Because this idea that it will only bring pain and harm, right? So you have to understand a few of these things. That from a spiritual aspect, that I'm going to be accountable for everything that I'm going to do, and from a very logical, worldly aspect, that this thing only brings pain and harm, and that at the end of the day, regardless of how much I invest into my jealousy, it's not going to what? It's not going to benefit me. Is there ever a time, so the problem with jealousy is because of the negative feedback loops that we showed previously, is there ever a time I'm going to be satisfied with what happens to that person? No, I don't. And subhanAllah, man, like some of the examples he brings is, man, it's actually, it gives a lot of perspective. And it only increases in harm, right? So again, this is another feedback loop that ends up being created if we don't understand. But here he's trying to create a positive feedback loop by understanding that if I come to these logical conclusions, it will only bring me back and only allow me to realize that I will be resurrected and I will be held for account one day, and that I will be punished for those thoughts. And again, these are some of the positive feedback loops that he's trying to create here. This idea of self-realization. And a lot of this, when we talk about Tazkiyah, one of the major elements of Tazkiyah is al-muhasabah. To come into this idea of self-realization, to do that reflection, to sit down and have those conversations of why it is that I'm feeling like this, and how to counter some of those evil feelings. Because is it possible that we have feelings of jealousy, we have feelings of cowardice, we have feelings, of whatever it might be? What do we do to actually counter that? We have to actively engage them. And if we don't actively engage them, those feelings are never going to go away by themselves. And all of this is linked to a even larger concept that we call what? Huh? Well, okay. That was pretty good. I give you some credit for that. But this idea of this constant struggle and battle, this is related to a larger concept of what we call in Allah. Huh? Jihad. Allahu Akbar. No, mujahid is good. I like that. I think that's good. But what's another concept? Huh? Okay. Purification, that's a part of it. What else? Huh? Ihsān, good. Akhlaq, good. No, I mean, these aren't bad answers. These are all actually really good. Another one. Huh? Okay, you guys are close, man. I like it. Huh? There's actually one answer I'm looking for. But you guys aren't wrong. I'm being very honest with you. You're not wrong. So I'm saying here, basically this idea of constantly battling myself, if we call it mujahidah, purifying myself, that we call tasfiyah. If trying to do better, that we call ihsān, taqwa. Right, because taqwa essentially is what? This idea of being aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, bringing Him into my thoughts, bringing Him into my conversations, bringing Him into my actions. Because if I'm constantly involving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and throughout all my processes, I should what? I should improve. I should get better, right? All of these evil things should start leaving my heart. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us successful. And we also understand with the punishment, why are we getting punishment? Because Allah is angry, right? Allah is upset with us, which is why the punishment comes. And with Allah's anger, there's no benefit. Again, coming to these logical, religious, spiritual conclusions by creating this positive feedback mechanism within ourselves. But this involves active engagement. This is something that's really important. This involves active engagement. And when someone says, why is taqwa so hard? It's because we always have to do it. Taqwa is a constant state where we're constantly trying to engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remember why we're doing actions. And if we are able to do that, it becomes easier to ward off these evil feelings. And this harm is going to be both in this world and the next, right? And we understand that. That's the point that he was trying to make. Not only do we receive this pain and torment in this world, but there's accountability in the hereafter. And at the end, what happens? The one we're jealous of remains unharmed. And many times, the one we're jealous of is what? He's what? Did somebody say women? Huh?
Winning.
Oh, winning. Okay, yeah, not just winning, but the person who I'm jealous of is
Doesn't care about.
he doesn't care, or he's not
aware.
He's not even aware. He doesn't even know that we're jealous of him. So he goes on with his life. He's unaffected, and I'm sitting there angry and boiling and in turmoil. So why isn't he harmed? Because his blessing will not be removed due to my jealousy. Very simply. Just because I want something, does it mean that it will happen? Absolutely not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decides to bless whoever He wants, however He wants, whenever He wants, azza wa jal. So He decides the amount, He decides when, He decides when it is to be removed. Do I have a role in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's process? Not at all, absolutely not. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is infinitely wise, and He decides whenever He wants to do it, however He wants to do it. And it's irrelevant how much effort I make. Right? You guys are all familiar with the hadith. Yani lo ijtama al-ins wal jinn. Yani even if the ins and the jinn, they tried to gather to hurt you, they would not hurt you except with the amount or whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He allows it and however much He allows it. And if they tried to gather the ins and the jinn to benefit you, they would not benefit you except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows. So they could not benefit you at all, they could benefit you some, they could benefit you a lot, but it's ultimately up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in summary, jealousy will have no effect on His blessing in the world. Like my jealousy has zero effect. On the other person. It has an effect on me, right? But the effect is negative. Tafadhali. You were going to ask something?
What is the evil eye in correlation with that?
Sure. So there are certain spiritual things that do affect others. Right? What are the things that do affect others? Huh? I mean, that's a positive way. So let me in a negative way. What are some negative ways that the evil eye? What else? Magic. Anything else you guys can think of?
Gossip.
Huh? Gossip. Okay, yeah, those are more physical things. But like in terms of the evil eye, in terms of black magic, yes, these are things that do affect people. Can they be initiated by jealousy? Yes, they are. But is it the jealousy itself that hurt that person? No. Does that make sense? Right? It's the weapon that hurt those people. So for example, if I was jealous of someone, or let's not use me as an example, but let's say let's say that there's somebody who's jealous of another and he stabs him. Is it the jealousy that hurt the person? No, it was the physical act that hurt him. And it's the same thing with the black magic. It's the same thing with the evil eye. Those were tools that were used to hurt them. It wasn't the jealousy essentially in and of itself.
And again,
Did you see
Tfadal. Yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, the min sharri hasad, right? It's not necessarily the hasad itself. It's the things that will come.
the evil of the
The evil, yes, the evil that stems from that hasad. The evil that stems from that hasad. And that's a beautiful reminder. I mean, even Surah Al-Falaq, it's such a beautiful surah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he starts by saying, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, I seek refuge, or say I seek refuge with the Lord of the dawn. And when we think of the dawn, what is the first thing that we associate with it? The light kind of breaking the darkness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's already creating this image of the light breaking the darkness. And all of the things that He talks about it, right? He talks about the witches that blow on knots. He talks about the one who is jealous. He talks about all of these unseen evils. And the only one we can turn to is in that darkness is the one who what? The one who brings the light. Well, it's beautiful. Like, if we ever have an opportunity, like sit down with like individual surahs, but the metaphors that many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about, like, sometimes when we're dealing with the evil eye, sometimes we're dealing with the ayn, sometimes when we're dealing with a lot of like people who are scheming and planning against us, it feels very what? It feels really dark, right? And we feel like, what do I do? This is not something I can navigate. Versus if I have an enemy in front of me, I can physically do something about it. Right? I can physically do something about it. I can either strike him, I can pull out a weapon. There's so many ways for me to defend myself against a physical entity, a physical person. But all of these unseen things, whether it be the machinations of people, whether it be some kind of spiritual, the evil eye, or whether it be black magic, I don't have physical weapons to fight them. So what do? I turn to Allah, right? I have to, if to fight the unseen, I need to turn to? I have to turn to the unseen. And this is where I turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in that darkness, I'm looking for what? I'm looking for that break. I'm looking for the break of light. And I'm looking for that light to come to dispel the darkness. Because that's what the dawn does. Right? It finally breaks the dark barrier. It breaks that darkness. And this is the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala breaks this darkness when these things come. And this idea of dawn, it's always been an idea of hope, right? It's been an idea of rejuvenation. It's been an idea of like it's like a new day, like new life. So even if a person has suffered from the evil eye for like a year, or 10 years, days, or whatever the case might be, the moment the victory comes, how does he feel? Right, he feels amazing. Right, it like all of the evil that happened, it's a completely new experience for him. So like I said, like it really is a beautiful surah. It really is a beautiful surah. I feel like sometimes we don't spend enough time and sit down with them to really ponder over them. Yes?
So according to the science of Tazkiyah, is it possible to totally destroy these emotions and states?
Sure, and we'll talk about it, inshallah. We'll definitely get there. So the problem with this idea, like the person who we're jealous of, is that number one, it's not going to affect his blessing, right? He's going to still be who he is, and he's still going to receive whatever he receives. In addition to that, is he going to be accountable for anything that I do against him? No. He can actually what? He can actually benefit, right? He can actually benefit, and we'll say, okay, well, how is that? So when I do something, if I backbite somebody who I'm jealous of, what happens?
The person who you backbiting has sins.
Right, so his sins get removed. He starts taking some of my good deeds. If I run out of good deeds, right? I'm not going to benefit in any way, shape, or form. I don't benefit in this world, and I don't benefit spiritually. Also, is it not possible that blessings are removed due to my jealousy? No, they can't. We've already established that. Just because I'm jealous of someone, can his blessings be removed? And it's the epitome of ignorance. This is what Ghazāli says. He says to think, to even have this notion or this idea that my jealousy has some type of effect is complete and utter ignorance in and of itself. The reality is it's a curse on us. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So so you said that, wait, can you go back to the last slide?
Sure.
I had a question about that. So you said that blessings are not removed because of jealousy, but could someone's blessings be removed because they're just jealous because they're very ungrateful and Allah removes their blessings from their life?
Okay, I'm sorry. So over here, just to be very clear, the person you're jealous of. Right, the person you're jealous of, not the one who's jealous himself. So the one who's jealous himself, is it possible because of my jealousy that Allah removes my blessings? Yes. Right, that's for sure. But basically here, this is talking about my effect on others. right? So when we talk about our effect on others is extremely limited. Like we don't. Even when it comes to positive things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Innaka la tahdi man ahbabt." And you don't guide who you love. Like people who you love, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yahdi man yasha. It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who guides whoever He wills. And that's in good things. That's in positive things, let alone negative ones. So here it is a curse for you. The one you are jealous of, he still remains. He doesn't go anywhere. And if blessings were meant to be removed by jealousy, then He says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wouldn't descend any blessings on anyone. Why? Because so many people are jealous, right? Jealousy is rampant. And if this was the case, we would see so many people with less things that they have. And not just that, He goes on to say, one of the biggest blessing is what? Iman. The biggest blessing is belief. And if anything were to be removed, then it should be this belief. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَدَّ كَثِيرٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ لَوْ يَرَدُّونَكُمْ مِّن بَعْدِ إِيمَانِكُمْ كُفَّارًا حَسَدًا مِّنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. That even after the truth has become clear to them, many of the people of the book wish they could turn you back to disbelief after you have believed out of their selfish envy. Whatever the jealous person wants, it is not going to happen. A jealous person can seek, a jealous person can look, a jealous person, he's sought out so many things, but those things that he seeks, they're just not going to be given to him. So then what happens? The opposite. So if we're saying that the jealousy doesn't affect this person, right? If nothing bad happens, here Imam Ghazāli, he says it's actually the opposite that happens. Meaning that if he wants disbelief for another, then that person actually believes. And again, what happened? The previous verse is very indicative of that. They wanted disbelief for them, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them what? He gave them belief. And if He wants a blessing removed, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in turn, and this goes back to what you were saying, if I want a blessing removed from someone else, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove a blessing from me. Why? Why does this happen? Like Allah's not a troll, right? Why would Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does it make sense that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would do it just to spite me? No, that doesn't. So why? To teach us. These are opportunities for hidayah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by doing these things, He's actually showing our role in the effect that we have. And they're meant to be reminders for us. The only shortcoming is because we're not taking advantage of those reminders when they do happen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us from being jealous. Ameen. So, and not just that, Imam Ghazāli goes on, he says, do you think you're the first person to ever be jealous? There are people who were jealous before you, and how much did it benefit them? It didn't benefit them at all. It actually hurt them. He said, busy yourself with your own blessings. This is what you should be. You should busy yourself with your own blessings by being thankful. Be thankful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, being thankful for what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with. And because you're lucky that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when that pang of jealousy comes, we're actually lucky Allah doesn't use that opportunity to take our blessings away. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless us. Ameen. So the one we are actually jealous of, he actually benefits. And we said that he jealous, then this is a summary of what he previously spoke about. He benefits in a worldly way and he benefits spiritually. So religiously, how does he benefit? A few ways. We said that he can take your deeds, and also because he's oppressed by you. What right do I have to be jealous of him? I have no right to be jealous of that individual. And this especially happens when it's expressed in statement or action. And there are a number of ways that this happens. I can backbite him. And the moment I backbite him, I'm giving him blessings. The moment I lie about him, I'm giving him blessings. The moment I try to expose things about him and I try to find out his secrets, I'm giving him blessings. If I mention his shortcomings to others, again, these are all different ways that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take my good deeds and give me bad deeds and increase his.
So it ends up helping you.
It ends up helping him.
I'm jealous of his jealousy.
You're jealous of his jealousy?
It's helping him, right?
I don't know. You've created your own negative feedback there. Right? So these are easy gifts for him. Why? Because he didn't have to do anything to work for him. Like he had to do nothing. Right? This individual, he literally had to do nothing, and he's collecting all of these good deeds. What is it that is being gifted? and it is the good deeds that are being gifted to him. Right? All of these things all of this work that this person is putting forward, whether it be backbiting, slander, whether it be exposing him, whether it be, mischievous talk about him, these are just good ways of like handing over and gifting your good deeds to that individual. And it's possible that because we tried to prevent him and prohibit it from things in this world, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will prevent us and prohibit us in the next. But we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to envelop us in his mercy. Ameen. So you intended to remove his deeds, but we only ended up removing our own. Right? And it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous. One of life's major goals is to conquer your enemies, right? To be victorious, right? Like we all, is there anybody here who wants to lose, right? Like we all want to be victorious. We all want to succeed. And by conquering our enemies or those who try to keep us down, we take pride in relish in their sadness and their misery. And I know that for some this might come across as very very base. You know what I mean? Like this is very lowly. But there is an element of happiness in that when someone tries to stop you and you overcome, is there not a sense of happiness like when you glance back? It's very natural, right? It's a very natural thing. That this person was trying to prevent you, this person was trying to stop you, this person was trying to hurt you, and you ended up overcoming this person. You overcame this obstacle, and now you can look back and you can actually take pride in what you did. And if you find them being tormented and upset, this is a source of happiness. And he says here that there's no greater pleasure than reveling in another's jealousy, crushing the hopes of your enemy, to relish your blessings, and he be sad and hopeless because of it. And I was like, I was taken aback. I was taken aback when I actually read it. And then I was like, but it's so true. It's so true. And there's some things that many times like we're shy to say or shy to admit. But the reality is, man, like the people, if we've ever been hurt, and I'm sure all of us have been hurt in some way, shape, or form, or somebody has tried to stop us from doing something, the moment that we conquer and like we see that person upset that we have succeeded, right? It just adds, like it just adds a little spice to the joy, and I think that's what he's talking about here, right? Yeah.
Sure. So if someone's done wrong to you, and you say later you see them like tormented or failing or sad or whatever, and you feel good, is that like indicative of like a sickness in your heart, or is that okay?
No, that's fine. I think that's normal, man. I don't think that's strange at all. So the thing is, but saying that, just because I'm happy that a person is in that state, does it mean that I can't go and help them now? Right? Because the thing is, the moment that I'm coming across them, so like, and like I said, I'm sure many of us have experienced this, that there's someone hurt us or did something to us, and then we come across that person, and that person has like, they are not as successful as, maybe they imagined or you imagined them to be, or they're tormented or whatever the case might be. That section that I'm seeing, it's like one frame in their life. All of that's happened before that. Because the thing is, like, instinctually we know what? That this person, what we're seeing right now, this isn't him or her right now. This is what? This is actually a summary of whatever this person has experienced from the time that they stopped me up until now. And they're whatever that gap might be. So at that moment, I'm gonna feel happy because of what this person did to me. But should I take happiness in their torment? Not necessarily. Like, am I going to feel happy initially though? Yeah, I will. I'll be like, yeah, that's what you get. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, why are you doing that? Like, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't fair. But at the same time, after you feel that, what can you do? How long is that happiness going to carry on? Because here, this is just momentary, right? Is this? Do you think this type of happiness is like it's going to carry on like your whole life? Like you're just gonna go through life, yeah, man, I remember that guy. Like that's like it's a fleeting moment of happiness. It's a fleeting moment of happiness. But after that happiness fades, what can I do? Right, I can put it to the side, or and I can continue my life, right? Because I'm not obligated to help every single person I come across. But if I do take that step and be like, you know what? No, I'm going to show mercy to this person. I think that's great. You know what I mean? Like you've overcome this person. They've been tormented by your success. They've been tormented by their failure, and they're tormented by the fact that you've taken pleasure in whatever situation they're in now. Like they can't really sink any lower. At this point, if you want to step in, and like I think it's a very merciful stance, and I think it's a sign of a very good mu'min, a very good Muslim.
It is a mu'min to like when ta'fu tasfahu kalimatan.
Yeah. No, tasfiyat al-qalb and like forgiving and all these things. That's what I'm saying, man. Like I agree with you 100%. Yeah, it's always better. Like just because I take happiness in that moment, it doesn't mean I shouldn't be forgiving, right? I shouldn't be merciful. Like I shouldn't take into account. So. Yeah. Allah musta'an. And it actually fulfills the purpose of the one who he's jealous of, right? So like when it gets to that point, it's like you're at that point where you're happy about that, and you were the object of that jealousy, right? You were the object of that jealousy, but now you're in a position of power. So, huh? Can you hurt him back?
Can I say,
he's already hurt, man. Like he's already miskin, man. No, so subhanallah over here, and you bring up actually a really good point.
That's what usually happens.
I don't know, man. I don't know if it usually happens. It does happen though. I agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
Are examples of the
Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah. Like that's the higher
So saying that, man, like, and no, jazakumullah khair. So over here, man, when you talk about like the relationship between two people, we have to understand relationships. The balance can shift very quickly. So over here now, what defines the relationship is usually the power dynamic, right? You know, where that person is in relation to the other. So when there's a person of higher position than you, he's more powerful than you, and he's trying to stop you, and you overcome him, then the power dynamic shifts, right? It shifts in your favor. How much easier is it for you to oppress him? Right, it becomes much easier, but at that point, it's now what? It's not retaliation. It is now what? It's now suppression. So this idea of the I don't know if Ulūm scale is a good is a good term, but like the oppression scale, man, it can shift very quickly. An example of this is you wrong someone, and you go to them and you apologize, like, hey, listen, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have done that, and they're like, all right, man, that's cool, it happens. And then next week, yeah, remember when you did that?
Did he actually
did it? Not just, yeah, so even if he's saying that he forgave you, by constantly dangling it in front of your face, what is he doing? He's actually oppressing you. So subhanAllah, you know what I mean? Like, look how quickly those dynamics can shift. You know, when it goes from an apology to now using that action against you, you know, as emotional blackmail, like we'll call it emotional blackmail or whatever, or leverage against you. Like, what is that? Leverage is power, right? And the thing is, like, if you're using that power to hurt someone else, that is the definition of oppression. You know, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from being oppressive. I mean, so why? So he doesn't actually die. Why? Because in his living is more what? There's more torment. There's more torment when he continues to live. And he just keeps looking about this blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until his heart can break out of jealousy, right? There's only two things that can happen. Either you're going to die, or you're going to break out of jealousy, or you're going to be in constant torment. And there's a famous piece of poetry. Your enemy should not die, but live on, so that he may see that which brings him gloom. You guys following? As long as the one he is jealous of is blessed, then it is perfection for the one that he is jealous of. Meaning that the one who is the object of jealousy, as long as his enemy lives, he will still take pleasure because of his individual success. And that is more tormenting for this person than actual death. So what is he receiving? Happiness. When we are able to succeed, when we are able to conquer, when we are able to pass certain tests in dealings with individuals, there is a happiness that's associated in that we receive. And he's even happier at your jealousy than he is for his blessings. Like, think about that. Why? Because he's so focused where? He's so focused on the other guy, right? He's not looking here, he's looking over there. And because he's looking over there, he's not able to take advantage and be thankful for the blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually given to him. So when he comes to know of your jealousy and its pain subsiding, this is the worst news he could receive. Because that is the thing that he was actually taking pleasure in. Meaning that if I have an enemy who's jealous of me, the moment I find out that he's no longer jealous of me, what happens to that happiness? Right, it subsides and it goes away. So why would you allow yourself to be a source of his pleasure? So now he's saying, okay, put yourself in his shoes. Why would you give someone else that sense of satisfaction or that sense of happiness? If you actually thought about all of this, you'd realize that you are your own worst enemy and more of a friend than an enemy of the one who you envy, because of the amount of benefit that you're bringing him. And because whenever you try to harm him in any way, he will continue to benefit. And this is why we can end up being our biggest enemies. So the only person to blame is me, is myself. There's no one else that I can blame concerning that. I think we'll stop here, inshallah, the role of shaitan and all this, because what do you guys think he does? Right, he just aggravates it further. So these ideas of knowledge, piety, status, wealth, right? These are all reasons that we can be jealous, right? And this is what the shaitan fears. He fears that you love knowledge for him. He fears that you love piety for him. He fears that you love status for him. He loves that you love wealth for your brother or your sister. And because when I love it for him, what happens to the reward? I get a share of it, right? I get a share. And this is the biggest problem that he has. He doesn't want us to be rewarded in any way, shape, or form. A man came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, and Allah's Messenger, what do you say about a man who loves some people but cannot catch up with their good deeds? Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, everyone will be with those who he loves. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this idea, like with jealousy, anger, hate, you'll find that when Ghazāli discusses these things, the very simple answer to dealing with those elements is one thing, and that is loving. Loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loving His Messenger, loving your brothers and sisters, loving your family. It's a very simple way, because love is something that will always lighten the heart. But jealousy, hatred, anger, these are things that will always make it heavier and gloomier. And we'll stop here, and Allah knows best. Wallahu a'lam, sallallahu ala khayri khalqi nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. We're just halfway through the chapter, by the way. So if you guys do have any questions about, he does get to creating some of those more positive feedback loops and mechanisms, inshallah, that we'll talk about. But we'll talk more about it, and we'll probably finish this chapter. The next chapter is really short too. So we're probably going to finish this book, inshallah, next week, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Chapter or book? Like, so the book, like this section. So this book is about like jealousy, rancor, and hatred. The next book is called Dham ad-Dunya. So it's like the how did I translate it? Condemnation of worldliness. So that'll be the next section, inshallah. Totally.
So you mentioned earlier in the previous slide about loving them, including like wealth.
Yeah.
You know, there's like a Sahih hadith
Mm-hmm.
called in Islam.
Yeah.
So essentially say you can be, or there's envious in two places.
Yes. Yeah. Knowledge and wealth.
Knowledge and wealth.
Yeah.
So how do you reconcile that?
So over there, that type of jealousy, because there are types of jealousy, right? What is the type of jealousy that is discouraged and dispraised? Right?
When you want to take away.
When I want to take it away from that person. So when I'm jealous of a person's knowledge or his wealth, in context of that hadith, how is that type of jealousy different?
It's a right?
Yeah.
It's when you want to keep that for
Mhm.
him or her, but
Yeah.
at the same time you want it to as well.
All right. Makes sense? Meaning that I don't want to take it away from that person.
Why
The-
would the word hasad be used in that hadith?
Because there are different ways that jealousy is expressed, right? So there is such a thing as good jealousy. Good jealousy is wanting good for your brother. But because the focus is no longer on him, it's on who? It's on myself. The negative type of jealousy is where it's completely focused on others. Any other questions? All right. جزاكم الله خير. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. Oh, yeah, the chair that you're sitting on, if you guys could please fold it and put it away, I'd appreciate it.